Alrighty, so we've just seen Detroit.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah, see, this one spells Detroit.
Yeah, that's
Not ducking out of the way of seeing this film because it's freaking
yeah,
fantastic.
not enough people saw it, and that makes us really mad because it's really good.
So, Detroit is directed by Catherine Bigelow. Oh. She most recently directed Zero Dark 30, and before that she also did Hurt Locker, and she also has an array of films that go all the way back to Point Break. And she is a fantastic director. She is unbelievable, and her newfound style, she continues here with this shaky cam, crazy man.
This documentary...
Yeah, this crazy documentary style that she kind of introduced in the Hurt Locker and then used once again in Zero Dark 30. She uses once again here. It's kind of like this documentary style, realistic film thing.
She uses this visual style that lets a film play out in real time. She's all about dropping you into events and making you kind of actively engaged. Her camera shake here is not for the sake of like, oh, intensity. It's actually to agitate you and get you involved in the movie, and we think it's consistently worked for her, and it works again here.
It works absolutely fantastically in a film which takes place in 1967 around the Detroit riots, and in particular an event that happens at the Algiers Motel in regards to police and a few locals that just happen to end up being in this hotel room.
And it makes for a pretty messed up movie. Like this film is A grade on intensity and just as high up on the levels of this is really messed up stuff. This is a super racially charged film. This film has something that it's clearly trying to say about police brutality, and it's completely applicable to, I think, what we're seeing happen a fair bit in America at the moment. It's quite aggressively against that stance, and it shows quite a lot of what went on 50 years ago with that same level of intensity and tenacity, trying to say, why is this still happening? We think its focus is really, really strong, and it immediately gets anyone watching and go, yeah, this is pretty messed up, and why is this still happening today? Without kind of hitting you necessarily over the head with it. No way to definitely hit you over the head with this. This film really does hit things really aggressively, and that's part of why for us it completely works. We are all about films that drop you into the action, immerse you, and make you really question things in an act. It makes you an active participant in the movie, and I think that is a really, really important thing when you're dealing with these kind of themes.
And as we've seen in the last two films by Bigelow, she really loves to toy and play with masculinity and violence, and really kind of, you know, play them against each other and kind
deconstruct them through that by putting them next to each other.
Exactly, yeah, and she again does it here absolutely beautifully, and like really I think the driving force of this film is Will Poulter's character, who just has so much of that violence in him and so much masculinity that he just feels he needs to let out, and my goodness, what a performance. I mean, we'll move straight into performances here, and Poulter's performance here is absolutely terrific. Of course, Boyega is fantastic here as well, and of course
the entire cast.
The entire cast, the cameos of known actors, including Anthony Mackie that pops up, and John Krasinski as well.
Yeah.
So very well cast, but I think the most exciting thing here is it's the subtleties in the performances. We have Jack Rayner, who plays a police officer here, and his performance was heartbreaking on many levels.
All coming from here.
All coming from the eyes. And yeah, look, again, just performances across the board were just simply breathtaking.
I just want to go back to the guys who are playing the police officers here, the aggressors, the people that are kind of stimulating this super violent situation. It's quite easy for people to say, oh, they just have to be kind of mean and nasty and aggressive, and that's all they're really doing in this role. But I think that is a massive, massive disservice to just how much work these guys have put in to, like, this is 2017, and breaking down yourself to be able to treat other human beings like that is not an easy thing for an actor to do. It's an incredibly difficult thing to be able to be that nasty and that full on and that intense. So I want to give a massive props to what they're able to do here, to be able to kind of break down all these barriers that over time we've learned to say, like, no, this is not okay. They have to break all of that back down again to become these people.
Oh, 100%.
And it's ridiculously impressive because it is super, like, I can imagine trying to play that, and it would be incredibly difficult being that nasty.
Yeah, for sure, because I mean the thing is, like, you know, it's quite easy to act angry to a certain degree, but to actually believe, for Will Poulter to believe what that character to believed, and to produce that form of anger and to produce that form of frustration against other people, I mean, we obviously all despise it and it's disgusting as a society, but for him to actually create that role on screen and make it believable, it's fantastic.
And I also just want to touch on kind of the same thing with John Boyega's character, having to be this neutral person that stands by guy, and is just there to kind of have things. Like he's kind of trying to diffuse the situation, but also not, because he's got boundaries and he can't overstep them. And watching the conflict on his face was absolutely fantastic, particularly in later scenes in the film as it takes another turn. He does some very, very impressive work in terms of expression, and not just with his face, but you can actually feel it in his entire body. And I think, again, I just want to stress the camera work really supports every person here. I think a lot of people go, I'm really pissed off by this handheld camera work, but this entire film is about being angry. So even in moments when something that's really tragic has happened, you cannot stop that camera from shaking. You cannot take a moment to relax. The editing cannot slow down because it needs to stay agitated. When you're watching a film that's moving slow, it's slick, it gives you kind of a frustration, but that agitation only comes from that handheld shakiness. It keeps you in a high state of, you're really alert. Okay, you're super alert, you can absorb information in real time much better when it's shaky like that, and it just keeps you super angry the entire time. I was super impressed by that.
Yeah, and I mean, and even if, you know, scenes don't necessarily work for you and you might think, oh, they could have done this, this, and here. I mean, just think, I mean, like, the vast complexity of creating a film like that and maintaining it the whole way through. We can't wrap our heads around it. I'm sure hardly anyone can. I mean, let alone Bigelow's vision to actually capture a film like this.
Together?
The cinematographer coming on board, and then, of course, in the editing room, then to decide, you know, what goes with what. It's just a vast complexity, and no one does it like Bigelow. She honestly like breathes air onto like these true stories
in it.
Yeah, and she brings them to life and allows them to kind of, I don't know, almost become a documentary in many, many ways.
Now, I don't think that this is a perfect movie. I don't think it's quite as immaculate as Zero Dark 30 is, or to kind of a slightly lesser degree, I don't think it's as great as The Hurt Locker. But there is something really seminal about this movie. It's got that feeling of being something that's really important, really in the moment, and yet completely timeless. I don't exactly agree with a lot of the kind of decisions that tie this back into reality, the same kind of thing that we've often had problems with before, with the kind of the bringing up of the real life stuff, which I find kind of breaks the immersion of the film when you're so in it. Showing photos and footage of the time quite often breaks it when you've constructed the world so fully. So for me, that kind of didn't work for me as well as it could have, but I think it's also at the same time, I mean, the intention's there, so I can't really overly fault it.
And I definitely do agree as well. I think because Bigelow's style is incredibly frenetic and it's messy, when it works and it gels together perfectly, it's like Zero Dark 30. It's almost flawless and you're like, wow. Whereas here, when a little few things don't necessarily work as well, it kind of sticks out a bit more. However, I must say, I really did enjoy kind of the themes that she was playing with here, especially in regards to voice and sort of the hidden voice within ourselves when we can't speak, those subconscious thoughts, but also the voice that we have to use when we feel that like we're faced with our own morals and ethics, and at some points in time it will cost us our own lives, and it shows in this film where people, they'll decide to be silent and they'll live, other people feel the need to speak up and they die, and that's tragic. And it's tragic that we've had to suffer through history that has allowed that to happen as well. But I just, again, the use of voice here was fantastic. In particular, we got to say that scene where we have a lead character of Larry singing in the theater was just,
yeah, that was a winner. So overall, Detroit is a film that is completely incredible in its creation. The fact that this thing exists and was put together so incredibly well is completely mind-blowing. It operates absolutely at its best in the moments of highest intensity, frenetic rage and fury, and in the quietest moments of searing kind of intensity again, and fear and sadness. And when it hits that point between the two and they combine, it's absolutely electric. There are some moments that do kind of get lost in the mix because of just how much is going on and just how kind of crazy this film is, but it is completely incredible, and we are so glad that it actually delivered.
Oh, just utterly happy that a film like this can exist and tell another story like this. And I'm like, to have Bigelow at the helm is just a blessing for everyone. If you haven't seen this film, we highly recommend it because it is worth seeing, and well worth seeing in a theater as well, because my god, this film is good, and we are giving this one an 8.8 out of 10. Must check it out.
So that was our review of Detroit. Have you seen it yet?
Did you like it? Did you like this video? Crave more banter.
If so, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel down there somewhere.
And don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, all at Breaking Banter.
And also at Patreon, because we have one of those now.
Woo!
If you want to, yeah.